Good afternoon, I'm John Gassman, President and CEO of Carolina's Gateway Partnership. Welcome to Nomaco. On behalf of the team here and on behalf of all of us, what a great event. And 20% of all of our income and wages in the Twin County area are from the goods producing manufacturing sector. That's probably double what it is nationally. And so to say we encourage sustainability really means in those industries to say we want to sustain our region. So this is a subject that is absolutely vital to us, and I'm just happy to be associated with it. I want to thank you all for making us a part of it. I want to welcome everyone for attending and thank the sponsors who are the Carolina's Gateway Partnership, Tarver Chamber of Commerce, Rocky Mountain Area Chamber of Commerce, and Nomaco. Thank you all for disrupting your day to host us all here. This is very exciting. SIS and particularly Martin Crompton, and I don't want to let the time go by without saying thank you to Allison, who gets everybody in order here. So thank you, Allison. And it was kind of an epiphany when I heard Mr. Noel speak when we were in Zebulon at the event, and he described sustainability, and I think it was kind of a thing where I said, oh, I get that. And so I'm really interested to hear what you all are doing, what we can do, and once again, I want to thank you all for coming and look forward to a very interesting afternoon. And I want to call on Claude Denby, who is the Nomaco CEO.
Wow, what a great turnout. So one, I want to thank you all for showing up to our facility today. It's great when different businesses can come together and share best practices and collaborate. And as you go through the tour, hopefully you'll get to see that we're really excited about the kinds of products that we produce here in North Carolina, across a couple of locations in Oklahoma and internationally, quite frankly. So first, just a little bit about Nomaco. You know, who are we? What do we do? You know, we have an interesting story. We have European origins in Belgium. Started back, literally, our founder started selling sponges, and out of that came this whole idea and interest in foam and synthetic materials. And he bought an extruder to make foams and synthetic materials. And just from selling sponges to buying one extruder is the genesis of all of the businesses that we're going to talk about, and all of the things that you're going to see, and all of the products that you see displayed on that table. More interesting about the story is our founder's son came here in 1979 with a wife who didn't speak any English in hand and with a young baby, and started selling polyethylene mechanical pipe insulation out of a garage in Sonia, Connecticut. And what that's led to over the last 35 years is an insulation business, a home furnishings business, a synthetic wine closures business, a Sponge-X business across the street. It's led to so many disruptive and interesting innovations that has sustained our company across multiple generations. And that's been fantastic. And so when we come here and we talk about, today's topic is about sustainability, a lot of times what that brings to people's mind is, you know, sustainability and environmental conservation. But we think of that in a much broader scope, as you hear it say, as you've heard it, you may have heard it said before, you know, make no small plans, for they do not have magic to stir man's blood, right? And the deal is that our sustainability is not only about the environment, but about being able to sustain this company across the generations for all of its stakeholders, the communities that we're in, our shareholders, the employees who make this company what it is. It's absolutely fantastic. So we think about it in a much bigger sense than what you typically hear about on the news. So let me start with the boring part of sustainability. I'll call it the boring part. We've had some fantastic results, and I want to talk about that, but I don't want to get the numbers wrong for fear of Scott or somebody chastising me later, okay? Because they're doing all the work. We've had some great results. Just from some of the initiatives that we've implemented, we've been able to reduce the potential impact on the environment by reducing 4 million pounds of carbon dioxide a year in our facilities. It's just been a fantastic piece. That's the equivalent, if you will, of removing 385 cars off the roads today, and we know what that can do to our environment. We reduced our energy consumption across all our facilities in a range of from 10 to 26% by looking at, how we do our lighting in our facility, by looking at peak demand shading opportunities. And that's the boring stuff for us, okay? I mean, everybody gets into it and wants to tie an economic equation to sustainability. And we get that, and we got that, and we're benefiting from it. But that's not what gets us going. What actually gets us going is that those efforts, those little efforts like lights and like peak demand shading, has led us to think about our material platform on a go-forward basis in a whole different way. We were the first company to introduce a new biodegradable foam to the marketplace through our engineered foam solutions business. Scott is doing some tremendous things with life cycle, in terms of life cycle around our polyethylene and the new products that he's creating today. What we believe is the entire benefit of sustainability is not just simply the economic piece, but that tomorrow, each and every one of us are going to have to live differently than we live today. So we're excited about what we're engaged in. We continue to think that we're going to create tremendous material platforms that marry very well into the sustainability, not only because it's friendly to our environment, but because in the long run, it makes us more competitive in our marketplace, okay? So we've done a few things. We've done a little bit of things. We're here to share those with you. We don't have nearly 10% of the answers. What I hope you do today as you tour is that we are able to engage with each other and that we're able to share ideas with each other, because, you got a good idea. I'm here to tell you we're going to steal it, okay, in terms of around sustainability. And you should do the same thing too, okay? Again, welcome, engage each other, and I hope that you have a very productive visit with us this afternoon. Okay, thank you so much.
So first of all, I want to thank the Carolina Gateways Partnership, the Rocky Mount Chamber of Commerce, the Tarboro Edgecombe County Chamber of Commerce, and really want to thank Allison from Nomaco and Martin Crompton from SIS. I mean, you guys, almost probably everybody in here has met Martin by now. He has dominated this eastern region of going around meeting with folks, and he embodies the marrying of sustainability and the community. He is a quintessential business development guy in the sense that he's bringing people together, bringing ideas together, and from that, lots of different ideas flourish and stuff. So we're proud of the work that he's done in pulling this event together. So thank you, Martin. So sustainability in manufacturing. As Todd was saying, sustainability is a loaded word. It comes with a lot of baggage, actually. And there's always this kind of tug between sustainability and its very quantifiable sense. That's the energy reduction that you see in factories like this. It's the waste reduction that you see in factories like this. And then the other kind of tug-of-war piece is the environmental piece of the equation, the kind of social community dynamic of sustainability. And in reality, those are not mutually exclusive. And I look at this, raise your hand if you've used this with your associates, if you've said this before, your boss has said this before. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And we do sustainability a disservice if we don't apply that same business rigor to measuring sustainability. Sustainability, if you're not measuring it, you're devaluing it. The actual impact of sustainability is far more diminished if you're not measuring it. And if you're just making kind of broad statements of it's just the right thing to do. Sustainability itself goes way beyond the kind of glossy marketing pieces that you might see, the corporate social responsibility reports that you may see. It really is, and Claude had mentioned this, it really can be an innovation driver within an organization. It can be the thing that gets an organization to step up and to drive innovation, and that innovation will drive growth for the organization, and that's an important component of any business. So if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. we celebrated Earth Day last week at Nomaco, and Doug Stolpe had arranged that and invited SIS to come and participate in that, and we hope that becomes a yearly tradition for us. But a mix of trying to come up with this, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, bridging that gap with the kind of environmental component of this. We were thinking about how do we present this at Earth Day to a manufacturer? Why should a manufacturer care about the environmental side of sustainability? So we said, the Earth is essentially a factory, right? So think about the big extruders you guys are going to see when you do a tour of this place. Think of the millions of dollars of products produced every single year. Look at all this foam in the boxes around you guys. You know, the jobs required to run this factory. The maintenance just to keep it all running. And all the systems, not just the production systems, but the systems you see above your head, such as the lighting. And the pride that you guys take in your job every day to maintain the facility. And so long before our friend Al Gore had his movie An Inconvenient Truth, about a decade before, in 1997, some scientists and economists got together and they said, what is this Earth ecosystem valued at? What is this factory valued at? They studied 17 systems. So that'd be the equivalent of studying the lighting system when SIS comes in and does a baselining exercise of the lights, the extruders, the HVAC system. So they measured 17 systems, and that ranged everything from pollination to the water supply, food production, and the raw materials, the inputs that go into this big factory. And what we found out, in 1997, they valued all that at $33 trillion a year, GNP. That's trillion with a T. While the entire man-made economy at that time was valued at $18 trillion a year. So this big factory, this is the value of this big factory that we all live on. 16 years later, we're looking at a global man-made ecosystem of $43 trillion. That's a lot of stuff being made on this planet. And in the U.S. alone, we're at $15 trillion. So we use this presentation at Earth Day to kind of marry the two, the factory and the Earth. And why should you care from an environmental standpoint? So we kind of end it with whether you believe in global warming or simple trash makes you angry. Remember, this thing is just a bigger version of the factory you guys are sitting in right now. And we should take pride in making sure it runs smoothly, cleanly, and to Claude's point, is around for future generations to work in and produce product. So now we ask the question, what's the sustainability state of North Carolina manufacturing? And this was a study done about a year and a half ago. In North Carolina, there's 8,000 manufacturers. There's 800 manufacturers that are over 100,000 square feet. And just in North Carolina, there's 1,800 suppliers for Walmart. Small contract manufacturers that are producing a lot of the things that you see here that go into the Sam's Clubs and Walmarts of the world. So the good news is that 74% of the manufacturers are claiming that they are implementing green initiatives or sustainability initiatives. And that 71% are saying that they're actually creating green products. And you guys will hear more about some green products today. But the bad news, only 25% of the manufacturers are actually claiming that they're generating more revenue from green products. And again, you'll hear some stories today on how that is actually kind of changing and how these stories are being told to buyers in large organizations. Only 42% are recovering, reusing, and recycling. Scott's got some awesome stories around this as well. And only 28% are reducing or substituting materials in their actual products. And this is part of the product innovation that Claude was referring to earlier. That when you start looking at sustainability, not just in the factory itself and reducing energy in your lights, but you actually look at the embedded energy in the materials and the products that you're building, sustainability is a pretty wide net of opportunities. Only 41% are reducing energy and fuel consumption. And this, for a group like SIS, this is a no-brainer. This is the low-hanging fruit, and more facilities need to be addressing And to the point that we're going to talk about here in just a minute, only 28% have actually done a third-party energy audit. They've actually had a group come in and actually look at their facility and do some assessment work. So we can do better, and there's a lot more money to be saved. Deutsche Bank and the Rockefeller Institute released a report last year. There's $1 trillion of energy savings over a 10-year period that is ready to be had right now. No new technology is required. No new equipment is required. We don't have to wait for cold fusion to be invented. There's $1 trillion in savings sitting on the sideline right now if we deployed about $270 billion worth of CapEx, so upgrading lights, on-site power generation. So these are the technologies that can be implemented right now, and those savings can start to be achieved. So we look at the process of sustainability, and we've got representatives of companies here that are at different levels of the cycle of sustainability. And what you see is this actually becomes a virtuous circle. There is no direct starting point per se, and there's no really off point per se. Every company is different, every facility is different. But we start with baselines. And we kind of aggregated some general quotes that we've gotten when we're out in the field talking to folks. And in the baseline process, nobody enjoys an audit. Who enjoys having an audit? How many times has a group like SIS come in and asked you for your utility bills, asked you your square footage of your factory? How many times have you had to produce drawings for your factories? The audit process is pretty nasty. And so the dirty little secret here is you don't need SIS fully for this baseline process. Any factory can do this. It's really a function of just keeping good records. It's keeping your utility bills organized, keeping your waste bills organized. And properly doing a baseline is going a little bit deeper. Doug and I were talking about this earlier. It's not just putting your utility bills in a spreadsheet and tracking what your monthly utility bills. Everybody in this area is acutely aware of that nasty coincident peak rate schedule. So unless you break your utility bill down into its kWh and its demand, you're not going to see some of the really big things that are going to bite you in the rear end in your baselining exercise. So even without an SIS coming to the table, you can go in and start really breaking down this data. And this data is absolutely fundamental for your sustainability and energy efficiency journey, because it is the basis for all your savings calculations, to make sure that those savings calculations are true. So that when you go up the chain of command and you're asking for capital budget to do projects, you can do that with confidence that these are the savings that are going to be had. So we go from baselining, which a lot of that can be done internally without third-party work, and then we go into assessments. And what we found, and our company is 2 years old, but what we found being in the marketplace is there's a lot of well-intentioned folks in the sustainability and energy world. There's a lot of folks that have done electrical work and now got into energy efficiency. There's a lot of communication and PR firms that have built sustainability practices. And what we've seen is there's a lot of vendor bias out there. And I'm sure you guys have seen this, where you've had lighting vendors come in and offer a free energy audit. And lo and behold, at the end of that energy audit that they're giving you for free, you need to be installing GE or Philips lights that they had to deal with. So we see a lot of this in the marketplace. And the feedback that we've got from a lot of CFOs that are looking at these savings equations is they don't trust product-driven engineering savings calculations. And so that will stall a project pretty quickly. We were talking about, at this assessment stage, they can be very simple and they can be very in-depth. Charlie, our director of engineering, we were talking about the 3 levels of the ASHRAE kind of assessment process. And you should be able to build momentum into that assessment process, meaning the first level, any good, what we call ESCO, Energy Services Company, and that's kind of the category that SIS will find, any good ESCO worth their salt is going to come in and do a lot of that work for free, just to get that baseline established. A really good ESCO, and you'll see this trend as I go through this, will also apply a pay from savings approach to this, meaning we will go in and we'll find some simple savings opportunities that will pay for a follow-on assessment of a boiler study, which really requires a lot more additional engineering work that can be costly. So what you want to do is you want to build some momentum through that process, and you can build momentum through that process with some small savings wins that will pay for your next incremental work that gets done. Financing. This is the big part here. We've heard this from a lot of plant managers. We never like to see financially sound projects fail because of short-term CapEx constraints. This is an area where SIS steps in fairly deeply into the process. And raise your hand. 2-year paybacks. That's pretty much what everybody expects out of projects. As soon as we walk in the door, before we even utter a word, we hear 2-year payback. And so we know that we'll have some work, some holistic discussions that need to take place in that process. You see in the assessment process and the financing process, again, when you look back at some of these vendor biases, product biases, assessments that come in, they're not looking at the holistic plant. They're not looking at what's the project you do after the lighting project, which would inform your savings calculations. So we call it the do-nothing math. So as we come in and start talking to facilities, we show them, here's what the world looks like if you do nothing over the next 5 to 10 years. If you decide to postpone your lighting project, what does that look like from a savings standpoint? That starts to perk people up, and they start to listen a little bit more of the opportunity, because they start seeing that money as a way to reinvest in other projects. It's a way to buy a new extruder and offer another type of production line. When you start seeing that money kind of aggregate and grow. We also kind of take it out of the realm of paybacks, per se, and start looking at IRR. And there's this kind of commonly thrown around quote in the sustainability and energy world that if the IRR, your internal rate of return on your sustainability project, is actually greater than your profit margin, it makes better sense from a stakeholder standpoint to invest that money into that project, that sustainability project. The reality is that's not how these things play out. And so we'll do some simple math there. So regardless of what the project is, lighting project, compressor project, you name it, let's say you do a really good baselining exercise, you really feel confident in that savings number, and you come up and say, I can save $50,000 a year in this project. Forget payback for just a moment. And let's say I've got an organization with a 12% profit margin. That's the equivalent of generating $416,000 in revenue. And so now you start thinking about this differently. What do I need to do to generate that type of revenue? What systems do I need to put in place to generate that revenue? Or is it better for me to go and do this energy saving project? So once we kind of show that, this statement starts to hold up a little bit more. And so you start having a better conversation around financing of these projects. The other thing that we find is this is where vendors will kind of exit the equation. And so at SIS, we hate to see projects just sit on the shelf. There's just something about seeing a really good project sit there for years and years and not getting implemented. And what we're seeing is we're working right now with a large textile corporation. And they have no tax credit appetite. So there's all these, you guys have seen this, EPAC tax deductions. There's lots of incentives out there to do energy efficiency. These 3 factories are very old, tons of energy savings, tons of greenhouse gas reductions, just an awesome sustainability play. They have no tax credit appetite. And so what we've done is we've started digging a little bit deeper, and we started working with them on sell-leasebacks. So they can sell the factory, lease it back, the new entity has a tax credit appetite, and now you can get those energy efficiency projects implemented. So that the factory workers have better lighting, the factory workers have better HVAC systems. So there's ways to push through and not just stop when you hear that kind of 2-year payback. Implementation. This is a good one. So, we've heard this from kind of maintenance managers. It's not always clear who's accountable when a project's done. And for that matter, who's accountable while the project is being evaluated and the project's implemented. What we've seen is a decoupling of the assessment side of the equation, the actual engineering side of the equation, and then the implementation side of the equation. And the theory on that, and it's held up, is you can have unbiased third parties do this. But what we have found is by implementing all those different stakeholders into the equation, there's a lot of waste in that equation. And there's a lot of wasted time in that equation. And in the sense of energy efficiency, time is literally money. And so you can collapse that down by working with groups like ESCOs that can take you all the way through the spectrum of an implementation. And that's really important. And at the end of the day, that's the group that is also accountable for your savings. So you've got one group to go to. Triage. We've been talking about this word a lot inside of SIS. And this is really what I was talking about before, the prioritization of opportunities. And Nomaco is an awesome example of that. So you go in, and it's very easy to see what are the opportunities, what are the low-hanging fruits. And then you start looking at opportunities. And again, I go back to this coincident peak rate schedule. You guys know this intimately, running factories in this area. Is there was an opportunity for Nomaco to buy a generator. That proposal that was put forth to them was done with energy savings based on their current demand. What their demand of their facility was at the time before they did a lighting project. And so had they gone in and done the generator project first and then done the lighting project, their entire 5-year, 10-year flow of cash flows of savings would have been completely skewed and actually could have put them upside down from a financial standpoint. And so the triage that we talk about is what is the proper sequence of these opportunities. So in this case, do the lighting first because that'll drop you down 200 kW. Then you've got a better baseline to work from when you start looking at other opportunities to do the peak demand shaving. So it's very important to, again, look at these projects holistically and not just have kind of single vendors come in and pitch you, this is the right thing to do at the right time. So just, we caution people on this kind of vendor bias that we've seen in the marketplace. Holistic also means, this is the close the ears for the presidents and the CFOs. This is more for the plant managers and plant engineers. There's a chain of custody of savings that needs to be established to really do sustainability in a holistic model. And that chain of custody is if we can achieve $100,000 a year from a lighting savings project, what can we do with those savings every year? Where can we reinvest that? Can we reinvest that in more sustainability initiatives, more waste reduction initiatives? Can we invest that in a new HVAC system? And so it's kind of the job of the plant managers and plant engineers to try to maintain some chain of custody of those savings so that those savings just don't go up to the CFO and disappear forever, but those monies can be applied to future projects. Oftentimes you'll see, I'll kind of talk about this a little bit later on the marketing side, but you'll see a little bit of greenwashing that creeps into this marketplace. You'll see facilities want to do solar before they do a lighting project. We would contend that the cleanest watt is the watt not used. So you want to right-size a facility first. Again, this is a holistic discussion. You want to right-size a facility first before you really start looking at renewable energy opportunities. So then, again, this is all part of the triage. And anybody that's coming in and talking to you guys about sustainability and is not talking to you about the proper prioritization and they feel like they're trying to push one specific agenda on you, you want to be mindful of that. We jump into the advisory side of sustainability. And this is, kind of after we've gone through a lot of the energy efficiency work, and Scott and I were talking about this at lunch, you start looking at what else can be done. And lots of people ask questions around, how do I get employees engaged and challenge them to think and take ownership of sustainability? And again, I would encourage you guys to make sure that as you're talking to folks in the advisory world, that they have this paid from savings mentality. That they are always positioning, how can we pay for this opportunity? And it could be as simple as, the example we use is, a lot of times you'll see lighting projects that are done, but the facility didn't apply for the EPAC tax deduction. Well, that's cash just sitting there. And so if you can go in and get that filed, that could be $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 that could be applied to a real proper internal employee engagement opportunity. They really come in and build the marketing collateral pieces you need for internal stakeholder engagement. It's not just a straight consulting opportunity. You want to have these paid from savings opportunities kind of floating in and hitting these milestones. We talked about LCAs. This is the time where you really start looking at, what have I done? I've done about all I can do inside of my facility in terms of energy efficiency, stakeholder engagement. That's an evolving process. But now how do I affect my supply chain? And so this is the time where you start looking at life cycle assessment analysis. You start looking at going and talking to your suppliers and how energy efficient are they? What are the types of materials that they're using? And so this is where you really start looking at broadening what your carbon footprint really looks like at a facility by doing these life cycle assessments. But we were talking about this, you have to get to a stage where you're comfortable with that, because it's opening up Pandora's box on a lot of occasions. When you start opening up that supply chain and talking about sustainability, you need to be able to talk about sustainability in a meaningful way. M&V, measurement verification, real sexy word. We go back to our original statement, and we hear a lot of this from the CEOs who talk to. I can't prove what I can't measure, so metrics are critical. Measurement verification has had a history of being too expensive, especially for the mid-tier manufacturing sectors, to get implemented. And it also is very fertile ground for hardware upselling. You'll see a lot of big hardware companies out there that do a really good job of upselling you on additional equipment or full-on building automation systems when maybe your facility doesn't require that. And these systems can be $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $500,000. And so we're looking at measurement verification a little bit differently. So it needs to be the kind of hard quantitative metrics that the CFO can look at and say, yeah, you promised me this amount in savings, you achieve that, you're fulfilling your end of the contract. And so it needs to be something that the CEO and the CFO can consume. But there's a missed opportunity with measurement verification. And that missed opportunity is what we were talking about before with the advisory side. It's stakeholder engagement, employee engagement, and the associate engagement. Hopefully when you guys do a tour, you'll see some of the monitoring systems that Nomaco does for employee engagement. KPIs are the lifeblood of kind of these facilities and tracking. And if you can leverage your measurement verification system to really do good stakeholder engagement, to really educate your employees about energy efficiency, sustainability, that you've now extracted a lot more value out of some traditional hardware, wonky, measurement verification system, which is putting those CT clamps on your meters and stuff. It actually becomes a really good tool for stakeholder engagement and actually marketing. It's all about marketing. You get this question a lot. Will this actually lead to new customers, new revenue? That's a tough one. That's the holy grail of sustainability right there. Is if I do all this work, if I obviously reduce my cost structure, and I start telling my story to the marketplace, will that result in new revenue? And we're starting to see the fruits of that. And these guys have got some stories of getting really good positive traction around telling that story. One thing we see on the marketing side is I go back to this term greenwashing. And you'll a lot of times see companies jump around a little bit here, and you'll see them tell your sustainability story too fast, you haven't done the work, it will actually damage goodwill in the marketplace. So you should be mindful that this sustainability is a journey. It takes a little bit longer. You're not just going to be sustainable tomorrow just because you want to be. It's a little bit of a journey. So there's a right time to really bring this to the marketplace. There's a right time to start bragging about your sustainability work. And so you don't want to get caught greenwashing. These guys have done an awesome job of doing the block and tackling work around energy efficiency and sustainability so that there's no way they can ever get caught for greenwashing because the numbers are true and real. So you kind of look at that as a virtuous circle. Lots of companies jump in at a little bit different times. KN has done an awesome job with their sustainability program. They're probably a little bit further along the cycle than a lot of folks. We'll get to hear their story. Again, we contend that sustainability truly is profitable. It's done right. Scott Edwards sitting directly next to me. And we've got Chris Antonella, president of the EFS. We've got David Wood coming in at the last second to help us out over at SpongeX. And we've got Keith Jordan from UK that joins us. So what I want each one of these guys to do is spend about a minute, 2 minutes talking about the products that you guys offer. Talk about your facility a little bit, talk about your business. We'll start with Scott.
Can you hear me now? Okay, good. The building that you're in right here, we share with two companies. My company, Nomaco Insulation, we make residential pipe insulation, but more importantly, we make industrial pipe insulation. Jeff Stewart is here from Hillshire Foods. We have folks from U.S. Food Service and others that we do. The ammonia systems in these facilities use dramatic amounts of electricity to cool the processes. To pump the compressors for ammonia. Those systems use, if they're not insulated, they freeze up. They have huge ice falls on them. It's not only a danger, but it can lead to tremendous amounts of wasted energy. We make insulation for those systems. As you go through here, you'll see some of it behind me. It's big green piping. You'll see it all the way up to 62 inch in diameter. And some of it's 8 to 12 inches thick. So you're talking about temperatures minus 40, minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's what we do here in this facility.
I'm Chris Antonella, and I represent the people from Engineered Foam Solutions, commonly referred to as EFS. And EFS is a pretty interesting business because we serve a variety of markets. And we do it playing on all the attributes of foam. And I encourage you to come up and see some of the different products that we produce here. But to give you an example, maybe just a couple of examples, foam is a great insulator. And so we serve the infrastructure industry with some custom underground pipe insulation that I think you'll find very interesting. Come up and see that. PE, polyethylene foam, is a great protector of shock and impact. And so we serve the automobile industry with a reinforced foam age protection for automobile windshields, for the transportation of automobile windshields. I think you'll find that interesting. Foam floats. It's got great buoyancy. And we serve the oil and gas market to help collect and contain oil spills. So we do oil booms, and you'll see that product as well. And finally, one of the great things about polyethylene foam, it has a great feel from a consumer, a fit, feel, and finish. And we are the largest provider to the health and fitness industry of exercise rollers, small in fact. And we have some examples of that here as well. So, like I said, I'll be up here. Kurt Harmon will be with me, and we'd love to talk more about some of the products that we do here in this factory.
Thanks, Chris. Again, I'm Dave Wood. I'm part of the operations team at the SpongeX plant. We're actually spread across the parking lot, about a 240,000 square foot facility, and we manufacture PVC foam products for aquatic, marine, juvenile, and OEM customers. We're a 3-shift, 5-day operation. You know, some of the applications for our product, if you go into Sam's store and see gifters and pool floats, they're probably ours. We also sell fruit and other store displays to food line. We sell buoy to the marine industry. So that's a little bit about us. We've got some products here, some samples to show you. Come up afterwards, we'll talk a little bit more about them.
Hello, I'm Keith Jordan from Cahan CST, and no, we don't make any foam insulation. Sorry, we're a different company. We are a Tier 1 automotive supplier. We're part of the Cahan Corporation. It's a global fuel system supply company, about 20,000 people worldwide, but we are located here in Tarboro. We produce electronic control modules, basically electronic systems for Honda and Acura. The powertrain control module, the basic computer for the car, as well as the all-wheel drive and active control modules are used in the Hondas and Acuras as well. We've been here 15 years or so, and I want to talk a little bit about our sustainability efforts. Some of our sustainability efforts and culture are being pushed from our customer. Honda overall is, as they talk about, a green company, and they try to push that to their suppliers as well. Our parent corporation, Cahan, as well, tries to be a good corporate citizen as well as pushing the environmental sustainability efforts. So that has pushed down to the Tarboro facility as well. So, and we have in the audience, if you see other people in white uniforms, they are proud examples of our sustainability team from our Cahan facility.
We'll start off with some questions here. So I alluded to this a little bit earlier in our kind of process discussion, Scott, but you guys have implemented some unconventional ways of reducing your carbon footprint. Do you mind talking about some of those?
Well, we've done a number of things at the facility. We started a couple of years ago. This is an old facility, and of course, when we took it over, we inherited all the old things that went with the old facility. The first thing we did working with SIS is we attacked the lighting. We had the old halide lighting in here that even if it was on full blast, you couldn't hardly see where you were going. But the energy usage of those lighting systems was tremendous. So we brought SIS and a contractor in, we went all the T8 lighting, but more importantly, we did the motion sensors with it. And one of the guys, Jay from QVC, was here talking about how they did their motion sensors. And each one of these, up here you'll see the little green box at the end of these lights. Our motion sensors go off very quickly and come on very quickly also. So we have reduced dramatically the energy costs in our facility by just the lighting system. That led us to attack the peak demand, which many of you deal with here in Nash and Edgecombe County, and I guess all over East Carolina in small communities. These off-peak or these peak energy costs can be absolutely staggering. When you look at your electric bill and you see something that you think it's a mistake, it's not. It's 1 or 2 hours of peak demand. It's enough to get your attention. So working with SIS, they developed, and you'll see some panels out here, some statistical modeling, where they can actually predict 4 or 5 days in advance. And we can rearrange our production schedules to start up an hour later or shut down an hour earlier. And the savings are just absolutely dramatic. The most important thing for me, not just the savings here, but we created a TEC team, a Tarboro Energy Conservation team, for this facility. And we looked at everything across the sustainability spectrum. Doug Stolte and Ken Robinson are on this team, our operations managers here. And we have gone through a complete recycling program. We've gone through a reduction program. And we've got a long list of opportunities ahead of us before we ever jump into the next big thing.
So this facility is the quintessential recycling program. It's true upcycling. It was like a 1952 was set up to be a textile plant. So Nomaco has recycled it into a foam business. That's pretty cool. Scott talked about the peak demand shaving. I mean, what we've been seeing on that is you're starting to see regulations come down on that, where the EPA is going to require that these generators only run no more than 100 hours a year. And markets like this, you're seeing the generators run 180 hours, 150 hours. So you start to see some regulation that's coming into play that's going to demand that those generators run a lot less from an environmental standpoint. So in the spirit of upcycling this facility, Chris, you shared this with Scott. Do you mind talking a little bit about kind of your product approach and things that you guys are doing with your products and sustainability?
Sure. From a sustainability standpoint, we've been pleasantly pleased with how many of our customers across different segments have been interested in sustainability. And so what we've done is we've really made it part of our value proposition. And what we try to do with our customers is take what we call a holistic approach and fully assess their needs. So we'll go in and look at specifically the product that they're asking us to help them with, but also the system around that, and look at how we can add value across that system. That might mean everything from the material that we actually put into the product to actually the packaging and filling out a container and a trailer and packing that as efficiently as we can. So, of course, the thing that drives most of the sustainability, most of our cost is in our product and our material. And so what we did was we developed the first polyethylene biodegradable material. And so what this product does is it doesn't begin to degrade until it actually hits a landfill site. Before that, it maintains all the properties of polyethylene foam. Okay, all the strength, all the characteristics. And then once it hits that landfill site, it begins to degrade. So that's just one of the things that we've done from a sustainability standpoint, to incorporate it as part of our value proposition to our customers.
Dave, thanks for filling in. We really appreciate it. So you guys, knock on wood, are doing a lighting project, I think, right now? You mind telling us a little bit about that?
Yes, like Scott and Chris, our building is older and our lights were outdated. We saw the opportunity to save money, and we went to our SIS and the landlord, put together a project to change out the lights, update them. What we're going to see as a result of that is not only are we going to cut back 700-ton greenhouse gas usage, in addition to that, we're going to save thousands of dollars a month and improve the lighting for our facility. We started the project on Monday over there, and hopefully in the next few weeks it'll be fully implemented.
That's been an interesting project for SIS, and we talked about that financing component of this. That's a project that everybody knew was like low-hanging fruit. It was there. We knew what the energy savings were going to be. We just needed to work through a way to actually get it done. And so rather than kind of give up on the project, we started looking at, can we get the landlord to participate in this? Is there an interesting economic kind of neutral incentive to get them to participate in it so that we wouldn't have to wait another year to do lighting? Because as we said before, in the energy efficiency world, every month that goes by is money that you're leaving on the table. So that's cool that you guys are taking that off now. Move over to Keith. You guys have been, in the spirit of this event that we're doing here today, where we're sharing some best practices and bringing the community together to talk about sustainability, you guys have already been extremely generous in opening your doors to the Nomaco folks. And John had hosted, from KM, had hosted the Nomaco team to kind of walk through their plants and see what they're doing for sustainability. So you guys are already living that kind of community involvement. Do you mind sharing a little bit about some of the specific things you guys are doing in sustainability?
Yeah, sure. And first, I want to make sure I'm kind of clear on this, that for us, sustainability really isn't about achieving an award or getting a plaque on the wall or a pat on the back. It's really, truly about improving our environment and making sure that we have a sustainable company for our associates and as well as our planet as well. So we are always are open to any other manufacturers that want to come in and see and tour our facilities, and we can talk openly about the things that we've done. And the sustainability efforts that we have had, none of that would have been possible without the input of our sustainability team. They've been around since about 2011, so they've had a couple of years to get things going, and they've done some tremendous things. They've already done the lighting project, gone through T5, fluorescent lighting. That's about a 70% reduction in the energy usage for the lighting itself. The other major things, of course, our big items for energy usage are going to be electricity, just the lighting, the HVAC, as well as air compressors. So of course the lighting has been done for our HVAC. We're moving to variable fan drives, which will help our usage, as well as, and this is kind of a common sense thing, our roof is a black roof. So we're in the southern states, right? It takes a lot more energy usage to cool the building than it does to heat the building. So as a part of our roof is at its end of life. So instead of replacing it with another black roof, we'll go back with a white roof. That reflects a lot of heat, reduces the energy usage. You know, it's just common sense thing, as Jason was talking about. Air compressors as well. Those are at the end of life as well. So when we start replacing those, well, why don't we replace them with better controlled units? Ones that are a lot more efficient. They can save about 20% of our electric usage just in those compressors. The other things that we're doing is our zero landfill initiative. Once again, that's just great for the environment. We've been able to achieve a 93% reduction in our landfill, actually achieving a zero landfill status for our facility. And the last thing is that we don't want to forget about is just basic community service. To make sure that we're sustainable, we need to give back to the community and make sure that we're involved in what's going on. So this past year, we achieved 1,600 hours through all of our associates. And our challenge this year to our plant is to achieve 3,000 hours. So hopefully you'll see a lot more white uniforms out in the community as the year goes on.
Yeah, when John walked the Nomaco team up on the roof, I mean, this is one of the things, you don't see this in terms of sustainability. It's something that's unseen. You walk up there and you go from literally the white section to the dark section, and it feels like a 20-degree difference. And then you magnify that inside of the facility itself. So again, something that you won't see from the road, something that you have to print.
Start degrading.
That's you, Chris.
Can you hear me? I don't have a clue, no. We use our material science, and there's a ingredient that's in the foam that actually acts as food for microbes. So when it hits the landfill site, the microbes attack it and disintegrate the material. You didn't think I knew that answer, did you?
Yeah, I got some more questions. So what Chris just described is true. I mean, again, we hear a lot about sustainability because it's the right thing to do. Sustainability truly can be an innovation driver. It will force organizations like Chris's to come up and really do some deep material science, to come up with ways to make sure when their product gets thrown away that it just doesn't sit in that landfill forever. I mean, for us, that's very impressive. Yeah.
No, one of you mentioned changing the roofing from a black roofing system to a white. And I was wondering if somebody was here wanted to see how that might benefit their company, does SIS offer a service to be able to determine how much savings there might be?
So we work with roofing vendors. So we've got a handful that we've worked with, and then we can work with, as part of that, what we talked about earlier, the baseline assessment process really establishes what those savings can be. But I know Keith can talk a little bit more.
And if anyone wanted any more detail, I'm probably not the best person to ask about it. The white uniforms just across the aisleway, those guys can fill whoever wants to know about how we justified it, what who the contractor, or whatever that detailed information may want to know.
You mentioned the ability to, that some companies can't get the tax credit from the benefits on this, but are there, well, I like the term investment trusts or real estate companies that are specialized in just doing that and allowing the company to kind of maintain control over that building, et cetera?
I quoted a number earlier that was from that Deutsche Bank Rockefeller Institute that does $1 trillion in savings and would require about $270 billion of CapEx. that actually kind of spun out of a large fund set up to do exactly what you just described. They know there's this latent, pent-up opportunity, and they need to unlock it somehow. And so what's happening, what we're seeing are special purpose funds, SPVs being set up, LLCs set up, that have a tax appetite and that can go in and help facilitate these upgrades. Wall Street has turned the word into a bad word, but financial engineering is almost as important as solution engineering when it comes to energy efficiency and sustainability. How do we get these projects funded? And there are capital sources that are coming into play that could fund those. And I take the SpongeX example again is you just had to find the right tax appetite individual or organization, and it just happened to be the landlord. And it just kind of stars aligned where you could pull that type of deal off. So you always, again, need to be looking at these things holistically and saying, you know, where do I look outside the facility to get some of these opportunities done? There's other sources other than just going to the CEO and saying, you need to provision the CapEx for this project. That answer? No?
This question is for Keith. Keith, you mentioned the cost down with your as a tier one building. And I followed it a while, but and having dealt with that for several years, could you explain how that works? Because it's not just a single time, it keeps on going. Would you explain that one more time, slowly, for me?
Yeah, sure. Basically, with our customer, they have an expectation that every year we should be returning some of our savings back to them. So, and it's ongoing until we have a new model. And our challenge as a manufacturer is trying to find that reduction that they're looking for. So one of the sources that we're looking at is increasing our efficiency and reducing our internal cost, as well as other things like material reductions and transportation and other things as well. But for us, particularly with sustainability, we're looking at reducing the electrical usage, which is a big part of our cost. And we, like I said earlier, we've had about a 35% reduction in the cost of our energy usage per unit over the last year and a half. I hope that answers your question.
All of you all are pretty large manufacturers. How about a small company with 25, 35 employees that may just be providing a service rather than manufacturing a product? I mean, other than the lights and the timers and recycling a little paper here and there, what else can that kind of a business be doing?
Depends on, so what type of service, an example, would you have?
Well, I want a newspaper.
He wants a newspaper.
Newspaper. So, this kind of goes a little bit back to what Keith was saying. There's a lot of just internal things to do from a sustainability culture standpoint. From a product standpoint, you guys seem pretty, do you use recycled content in the paper? There seems like from a product standpoint itself, there could be some sustainability gains that could be made.
Well, of course, the paper manufacturers all do recycled paper. You don't nobody uses virgin pulpwood.
Yeah.
But as far as some people think, I use recycled news content, but that's
So, I don't know if I'll answer that satisfactorily, but Scott and I were talking about this again at lunch, is even though you may have a small business yourself, your tentacles touch lots of other organizations, whether it's you have suppliers supplying you paper, you've got folks that you're interacting with. There's lots of ways that you can touch that supply chain and value chain. And so, going to your paper suppliers and what we call the LCA and start asking the question, what is that content made out of? That's a small step in sustainability, but it's a really important step because it shows you actually care about that. And that kind of sends a signal through that value chain. Yeah.
I'll tell you something else that we did, and it seems small, but it is amazing at how much paper we save. We do not send out invoices anymore. Everything is done with electronic emails. And we were shocked at the number of companies that we ran across that still employ somebody to print off a piece of paper, stuff it in an envelope, put a 35-cent stamp on it, send it to their customer. So all companies can do little things like that, and it's amazing at how much that it adds up.
I have some more questions there.
Jason.
Yes, it is. Can either you or Dave or Martin Sierra explain the global impact of this downstream effort that Walmart is putting on its suppliers, because it is really a big deal, and the carbon footprint and savings there, and how it's going to affect the U.S. economy, hopefully in the next 10 to 15 years.
So we quoted the number earlier. It was 20 million metric tons of greenhouse gas reduction. And greenhouse gas includes more than just carbon dioxide, but that's kind of the big one in that group. They haven't come close to hitting that number yet. They're actually pretty far off from hitting that number. And what they're doing, and we've got Dr. Nick Heyman is somewhere in here as well. They're tackling the big ticket items first. So they're making a big move into the grocery store arena. So they're looking at things in agriculture, things with producing, things that are going to be sold in the grocery stores, how they can reduce that carbon footprint. What they've done from the kind of traditional contract manufacturer side, the folks here, is they've set up programs. One of them is called SEEP, Supplier Energy Efficiency Program. And what that's supposed to do is allow Walmart to help influence energy efficiency in their contract manufacturers so that they can get the claim of the carbon reduction. So they can use this vast supply chain. And I said this early on, there's 1,800 Walmart suppliers in the state of North Carolina. And they're starting to put a little bit of pressure on that supply chain. They think they came out with, they're putting a performance metric on their buyers, that 5% of their performance grade is based on sustainability metrics. And so the vast buyers that are buying foam from Spongex and other companies are starting to hear from the top down at Walmart that you need to be looking at sustainability metrics. You need to be looking at and asking that question of your suppliers. So I think the Walmart challenge, and Walmart gets accused of greenwashing quite a bit, and we have our own internal discussions around Walmart, but they're so big and they put so much buying pressure on the marketplace that when they start to ask questions, people start listening. And this is the question that we asked at the end: what are the challenges of sustainability? That's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for those 1,800 suppliers to proactively start looking at getting more energy efficiency, start embedding sustainability into their DNA a little bit more. It's a tidal wave that is going to sweep through, and it's a good tidal wave. It's better than regulation coming down and saying you need to do this. You'd rather have more of a free market approach to sustainability, meaning you've got a buyer who is demanding this, or you've got a buyer that says, and Walmart said this, and whether they do it all the time or not, is they've claimed that they would pay a little bit of a premium for a more sustainable product. And so again, these kind of keys that we're hearing, these sounds that we're hearing from Walmart really should be kind of a trumpet for innovation. Again, we get this question all the time: will sustainability drive revenue? And that's the wrong question. We may not have addressed that clearly earlier. Innovation will drive revenue. That's the engine that will actually help drive more revenue. And so you need to use sustainability as that innovation engine to crank up. And when you get the Walmarts of the world starting to ask those questions, that can be the necessity to do that.
Just a comment on what Jason was saying, and it's purely coincidental that I sound like Martin. I want you to know that. Is that Walmart actually kicked off something 4 years ago called the Sustainability Consortium. Many of you might have heard of it. There's about 100 multinational companies all kicking in 100,000 a year to sit at the table and think about tools and metrics to drive sort of better quality products. Quality meaning smaller footprint. And that, I heard Keith say it, I mean, be assured that whether Walmart does it or Procter & Gamble drives it, somewhere down the road, you're going to be competing with a lot of other companies who will know and understand the footprint of their products and can demonstrate that they're doing things better. And I think that you don't spend $100,000 a year to understand what's going on and help drive that if you don't think it's coming. And
that's the membership dues to get into
that's
that
just to sit at the table. I did it for 3 years in a previous life, and it's kind of interesting to watch. So all those companies are there. They're international, and some are implementing ahead of others. Some of them are global companies. They're having to implement this in Europe. You go into stores in Europe, and you're going to find a lot more information about the products you buy, because consumers want to know about that. And there's some other. Can I make one more comment? We're talking about recycling. You can make sustainability more sustainable. So we talk about cardboard recycling, which is an obvious one right now. But what about cardboard reuse? I've been working with SIS and also with Duke University and others. There are companies out there that will take your cardboard, give you a much higher price for it, and they'll just reuse those boxes. And you imagine recycling is great, but on the other hand, it uses huge amounts of water, huge amounts of energy. So you think you're there because you're recycling, but there are better ways to recycle. You can reuse. So don't think new technology is coming or new ideas all the time that can take you to a better place.
So we just convened the Tarboro Sustainability Consortium, and it was a lot cheaper than $100,000 membership. Other questions?
From all of us here at Nomaco, we want to thank you very much for coming out and visiting with us. We want to continue to share what we learn, and we want to learn from each of you to make all the factories and all the businesses in Nash and Edgecombe County as productive as they can be. So thank you again for all your work here and giving up your afternoon to come help us make our communities better.